This podcast and its related content are intended for listeners aged 18 and above. Some episodes may include sensitive topics such as trauma, abuse, or mental health struggles that could be emotionally triggering or distressing. Listener discretion is strongly advised. This podcast is created for educational and awareness purpose only and does not constitute legal, medical, or psychological advice. Welcome to Sunoh, the listening circle. The name Sunoh in Hindi means to listen, and more importantly, to be understood. This podcast aims to create a circle of understanding for South Asian women primarily, and anyone else who may be interested in these topics, from changing family structures to work-life balance, motherhood, singlehood, and much more. We are hoping to shake off stigma one conversation at a time. This season, we are looking at separation and divorce in the South Asian context. And I'm your host, Harveen. So today's guest has an incredible story of transformation and resilience. Imagine growing up in a small city, good education, and starting a successful career and getting married as planned. But when things go off the rails, imagine not only going through a divorce, but at the same time starting over in a totally new country, rebuilding your life without any support, and redefining your identity. And having the courage to find humor in that, also in this case, quite literally. That's what our guest today has done. Ritu Tirthani grew up in Indore in Madhya Pradesh and has gone from a human resources career in India to a range of jobs in the US and is now a rising comedian doing live stand-up as well as participating in Second Chance Stage on HBO Max. I can't wait to have this conversation with you today, Ritu. Welcome to our podcast and thank you for taking your time out for this.
Thank you. This is a great introduction. Oh my God, I'm feeling proud of myself. Thank you for listing everything I've done in my life. This is very cool.
I wanted to start with something that I found while researching about you. One of these comedy websites gives a bio for you that says Ritu's accomplishments include one failed marriage with a goal of failing at a few more. This is so funny, aspiring to so-called failed marriages. And I wanted to ask you at the outset that what does this statement mean to you? And how have you come to embrace it?
I came up with this because somebody was like, can I get your comedy bio? And I was like, what is that? And just the credit, but in a funny way. I was like, that's my credit. After my divorce, my life has gone up so well that I'm like, I can do another one. Let's see where that goes. And failed marriages aren't an accomplishment, but it can be if you take it in the right direction. Hey, I did.
And in your case, owning your story in many such snippets that you share in your stand-up as well, it must be also an empowering experience for you.
It is. I remember getting divorced when none of my family members have been through this. So when it happened to me, I was like, I can totally hide it forever because I'm so far away from home. Or I can embrace it and then make fun of it. So I went through the other direction and it's been good. I'm glad I took that stand instead of hiding it or being ashamed of it.
That's also the idea of the podcast, that there is no shame in divorce and we want to be a part of normalizing it. And you've embraced it with a comic stance to it. So maybe we go back a little bit and start with your background, because that's also part of your story of how your growing up years were and how did that shape your values before you moved to the US?
I grew up in Indore. It's a small town. And I grew up in a big family. My mom, dad, my younger brother, and then my uncle, aunt. They're 4 kids. We all grew up together in the same household and a lot of neighbors who were family. It shapes up a lot of who you are because you see around you what's happening, and that's reality. My neighborhood was conservative. All the women around me were housewives. My mom was pretty cool about finding side hustles and she'll make money, but she'll never tell my dad about it. I was always impressed with her, but whenever I tried to tell her that this sounds fun, I want to work and I want to become something, she would be like, you can either become a doctor or just get married. You cannot just become anything else. doctor is well respected, but you still have to be married. That's how it was around me when I was growing up. That shaped up a lot of who I was. And both the brothers, my cousin and my real brother, were always given a little bit more leeway in doing things. I always questioned it, but I also knew that this is very normal with my neighbors or with everybody around me. It was always like, you have to learn to cook. He doesn't have to. Or you can do things late at night, but you have to come back at 6 p.m. And you can have girlfriends, but you cannot do anything other than studies. So it just felt weird because I always thought of my brother as somebody who's just me, but in a men's body. So I was just confused. Why were we treated differently? Looking at women around me, they would always agree with a lot of things that they were asked to do. And I was okay with it. But just questions in your mind.
Well, those are some very interesting facets that you've shared about your growing up years, Ritu, especially that your mother had such an entrepreneurial streak, but never got the credit for it. So, with that kind of growing up years, how was the choice of your career? Because you were working for a while in India before you got married. How did that journey happen for you?
After finishing my 12th grade, my parents were trying to get this arranged marriage for me. And back then I used to wear glasses. Then I was getting rejected for marriage, which was awesome because I didn't want to be married. Instead of being like, oh my God, nobody likes me, I was just so happy. I was like, I love this. I'm getting rejected because now I can keep studying. I still wanted to find myself. And my mom was always mad whenever the rejection came. She's like, I don't understand. I'm like, I know. Let me study so I I have a bigger credit. Maybe it will work. So she was like, whatever, nobody likes educated women. I'm like, we'll see. Maybe things are changing. So that's how I kept at it. And my dad was pretty cool about it. He was like, until we find somebody for arranged marriage, there's no point in you sitting at home. So you keep doing your thing, like whatever you want to do. So I ended up doing master's degree, and then I got student loan, convincing them to take that loan for me and trusting me that I will pay it off because I was always good with money. But they were like, it's just a phase and she'll be married very soon. And finally, I finished my master's and I got a job offer, which I was thrilled because I've never heard anybody around me to get a job offer. So I was happy when I came home. Everybody was happy. They're like, I told you she's different, this and that. It's like a 20,000 rupees job. It was a bad job offer, but it was a job offer. And I still remember they were also happy. But then I was like, okay, the start date is next month and I have to move to Pune for this. And they were like, what? No, job offer doesn't mean you have to take the job. I'm like, what? No, I want to take the job. And so all of my family members would meet every night and they're like, I don't know what to do with her. We cannot just let her go to a different city. My dad was like, I am making enough. We don't need your money. I'm like, I don't know where this is going. I just need to take the job and just enjoy something different. Seeing how a paycheck feels that comes into my account and I get to decide what I have to do with it. So I finally convinced my dad. It took a while, but he let me take the job and everybody was crying like something bad has happened. The next day I was going to leave. It was the hardest 2 months of my life because I've never lived with somebody. I cooked for myself, did a 9 to 5 job, come home and cook and eat and then go to bed and do the same thing again. I was like, this is what I was excited for. 9 to 5 job. This is what I fought for, really? But the first paycheck felt so good that I was like, I want to keep doing it. I would still go home to meet men for arranged marriages. It was still not working, which was perfect. And then after a year or two, I met my ex-husband there at one of the jobs. That's how it was. It wasn't the easiest journey. The excitement of leaving the house was there, but when you leave the house, you're like 20,000 rupees, where 19,000 go on my student loan. I'm like, how am I supposed to survive with 1,000 rupees? That's crazy. So it was a great learning experience.
It's like almost you were in the middle of traditional modern clash. On one side, you are doing this job. On the other, you are also going for these arranged marriage visits back home.
So were you just going along with what your parents wanted, or eventually you did think you'll find somebody through the arranged marriage setup?
No, I was never into the idea of marriage. I loved my parents a lot, so I really wanted them to be proud of me. So I was just doing those arranged marriage things for them. But I would meet these men and they were always like, yeah, you can keep doing the job until the wedding day. Like after that, you can't work because I have a job. That was becoming a problem for me because I was enjoying it. Or they would be like, how bad is your eyesight? There were a lot of things that now, when I look back, I'm like, I was just listening, sitting, and answering those dumb questions in a very kind way. I'm very happy how much I've changed over the years. I wanted to find love, but not marriage. I wasn't against the idea of arranged marriage because I saw my parents had arranged marriage and it was good. So I was just like, it's fine. It was just finding somebody who I was attracted to and the values aligned.
So then when you met your ex, how was that to navigate with your family and break the news to them?
Oh, yes. I met him working at a company. And finally, when we got to a point where we were like, let's get married, I went back home. I was also, according to Indian marital age, I was 23, 24, which was late. So they had questions. They wanted me to not do it, but they were not like, we'll kill you if you go through with this. You know how extreme Indian parents can be. My cousin went through all of it. Locked her in the room. They were like, you're not leaving the house if you marry this Bengali guy. But she went through it all and she was very happy. And that's when I said that. So they were like, oh shit, this love marriage can be happy too. And then financially, I think my ex-husband was not the same financial status as us. So that was another problem in Indian marriages. It's like a husband should be higher financially, whatever. I don't know. And being a Gujarati was a problem. So yeah, I had difficulty, but he was very good looking. So that's where my mom was just like, oh my God, I get to brag about this man to everybody. And they'll forget that he doesn't have money. It was funny.
You were still fairly young at the time, and all this was going on. Did it happen in the most traditional way? Did you have negotiations about this tradition or that tradition? What were those dynamics like?
It was very easy initially, but closer to the wedding day, I'm learning about him and his family. And I'm like, oh shit. I thought that we were the same age. The future looked fun with them. But then getting to know that this is how it could be when closer to the date. So the wedding day wasn't the happiest day. It was a lot of stressful situations and him being angry about a lot of things, which I haven't seen yet because, it was a little affair for a year where you're like getting to know each other. You're having fun all the time because you're in a new city. And then suddenly you're with both the families, and wedding is a lot of stress and it's a lot of changing clothes. It was getting annoying, but he didn't seem happy, or same with me.
That's relatable for me too, as well as that is the norm in India that happens. And from whichever people I've spoken to, even in the most progressive, educated families, it's almost like these traditions, which are often more skewed against the women and the family, happens all across the country. And you're told that this is how it is, aisa hi hota hai. You go with those events because in that moment, perhaps you feel this is just one day and that's not life. But a lot of these things get revealed nearer to the wedding days. Often for a lot of people who are in love marriages, know the person and you're not prepared for these traditions and face those choices in that last moment. That I know that I did too. And I still have a lot of guilt attached to some of those decisions that I let happen. So I totally relate to you with all these tensions and anxieties that come near to Indian weddings.
Yes, it's a lot happening around you that you're like, I don't think this is right for me. But you're also like, maybe it's not what it is. But now when I look back, I was like, oh shit, if I could have just stopped it that day, it would have been good.
So after you got married, and you're now living with this family. Did you immediately move to the US or how did that come about?
We lived in Pune for 2 years. I had my job. He switched to a different company, so we were working for separate companies. After 2 years is when he wanted to go to the US. His cousin was in the US and they post these pictures and then he's like, oh my God, I want to live there. My family, nobody was outside the country. So I was just like, what is this? Why do we have to change so much? So I wasn't into the idea. And he was, okay, you can be here and I'll go and I'll be back in 6 months or you can come there in 6 months. And by then the marriage wasn't doing that well in a lot of ways. So I think it will end if I don't go with you. So I will come with you. And then he got a job and stuff. But when he moved here, I was only allowed to work 15 hours or 20 hours. I worked at a gas station.
You mentioned that even before you moved to the US, certain problems had already started to appear in your marriage. And then you still went with him to the US. At what point did they start becoming bigger, or at some point did they become less?
It was a lot of problems between us. And before in India, we would have conversations and he'll be like, well, I'm tired. It's a lot of responsibility and this and that. But when we moved to the US, I was kind of nervous because it was a new country and I was still figuring out a lot of stuff. And I was working at a gas station. I'm like, how will I get this? I'll have to move back. All my savings are gone because we put a lot of it in the US. So there were triple red flags when we moved to the US. And it got worse. And also me working at a gas station was just, now I feel like it was a great thing for me to learn a lot about other jobs because I always had a desk job. It was a good learning experience, but it also made me feel like I did masters. Like I want a job. I want a proper job. That time I was complaining every day. I was like, this is worse than India. What is this country? I hated it so much the first 8 months. And I also had to wake up at 5 a.m. So I'm not a fan of waking up early. You were like, podcast at 9 a.m. I'm like, no, ma'am, this is going to be 11 a.m. I don't wake up. I'm not a morning person, but I had to be for 8 months. And regardless of marriage or anything else, coming to a new country is not easy. So many friends who are from other countries who move here, the first year in the US is the hardest year for a lot of immigrants. It's the culture shock, it's the loneliness, it's a lot of things that nobody can explain, but they go through it. And it gets better, but you just have to survive in that first year.
That sounds like a lot of things were going on in parallel because it was a new country, new kind of work that you had to adjust with, also your situation with your husband. No one prepares you for such choices and decisions that you have to make even on a daily basis in a new culture. What is right? What is acceptable? What is not? Part of your decision to move countries was so that you could mend the challenges in your marriage. How was your feeling at that point of time?
He worked a lot and he wouldn't come home. And then it was just a lot to learn by myself. And after probably first year in the US, I was like, I have to end this marriage. I could go back home, of course. But then at home, the same thing was going to happen. I would be married again. I don't want to be married. I want to find who I am. It wasn't like, oh my God, why am I sweeping and mopping the floors? I was just so into finding my passion. I was like, what if I really like making burgers? What if this is what I want to do? Like I was doing everything so passionately, like putting those price tags on those groceries. Maybe this is what I like. When I moved there, I had so much time because I was so alone and not having 700 people around me like I used to in India. It was a lot of time for my brain to think as to what I really wanted to do with my life. So I think that was an initial spark of finding who I was.
And look at that. It's so inspiring that you went to the deep end to discover your passion and you're explaining it with a very positive light. I think not everyone would have that mental acumen or courage to really do that, Ritu. I hope you give yourself the credit for that because this is probably a very vulnerable period for you. and what was happening in your living situation at the time. Were you still living with your ex? At what point did you decide that, okay, you want to move on and live separately, get a divorce?
I was becoming extremely depressed, and I loved sitting in the bathtub for hours just crying because he wasn't home and I was just by myself. When I started doing that so regularly is when I realized this isn't healthy. I was just like, I am really like the worst version of myself right now. And I never liked the idea of marriage. And now my marriage was like this. And I was like, oh my God, I was right. Marriage sucks, like so bad. I finally got a job offer as a front desk at a hotel. I was in Nashville and I was super excited. And I was like, we're going to move to Nashville because I was a bad driver. So I wanted to be close to my work so I don't drive. It was a lot of convincing on my part, but he finally agreed and we moved to Nashville. And we had to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks until our place was ready. And those 2 weeks in the hotel, it was a lot of struggle. And he was like, I want a divorce. And I was just crying nonstop because I was just like, I just got a job. I'm trying to change for you or whatever. There was no point in my life that I was like, I don't want this marriage, but it was bad, but I still wanted it so badly. And I said no to him. And then he left for 2 weeks. After we moved into the new place, he left without telling me where he was going. So I think that was the time that I was just like, I don't want this anymore. I think I've given a lot of myself to this marriage and this is not right. So when he came back, he was like, I realized that I love you a lot and not having you around me is just the worst thing in the world. For the next 6-7 months, he would come home as the best husband. He would bring me stuff or talk to me or cook for me. But for those 6 months, I was just so in my head because my brain was just deciding to leave this. And I have decided it. I'm just trying to learn how to do this for myself. It's the small things I don't know how to do. I don't know what we have water bill. Why? Where are you paying for water? He took care of a lot of things. And the fear that I have to learn all of this was weird. I take New Year's very seriously. I don't like to go in a new year with the same me. I always try to do something new. And I just decided that December 31st, I'm going to leave this house. I found a place on Craigslist, which please don't do. But I was lucky to find 2 roommates. I moved out. I remember talking to him on the 27th and I was like, I'm moving out. I don't want this anymore. But he was so sure that I can't do things by myself that he was like, okay, just tell me where you are. And which is not wrong because that's how I was. So then I packed my bags and I was like, you're leaving for work, but when you come home, I won't be here, but I'll talk to you and just need some time to figure out what's going on. And I don't want this. That's when I moved out. I moved out on December 31st in a random apartment, Craigslist. They were very nice though, very kind people. I liked living there.
But what a bold move, Ritu. And it's amazing that you took this leap of faith to figure it all out and the logistics of life. And then eventually, I'm assuming he also accepted it, or after some point, did both of you think of reconciling it, or how was that?
I gave myself 6 months. I didn't sign the divorce papers. It was a lot of learning. And then I decided to take a solo trip to New York for a week just to see if I can even travel alone. I've never even traveled alone. Doing those little things and going to an app called Meetup to make new friends. The little challenges I gave myself in those 6 months to learn if I can do things by myself. It was a lot of going back for sure. I knocked on his doors a few times and I was like, I want this back. And I cried. It was a lot of back and forth. But after the end of 6 months, I was just like, okay, I'm ready to sign divorce papers. Let's make it official that I know I'm moving forward. So that's how it happened. There were so many times, like it was December, January, my car was all full of snow. I'm like, how do I get this out? Do I not go to work? So things that were so small, but it would make me cry because I would be like, I'm old enough to know how to get snow out of my car. Like, this is crazy that I don't know this. Because I was so depressed and just so sad in the US that I just never learned things. Yeah, maybe he was taking care of a lot of things that I just didn't know. So I was always mad that I didn't know so many things, but I would also feel proud when I go out to a random overnight camp or like hiking by myself. I'll come home and I'll be so happy that I did something by myself and I didn't die. So it wasn't like end of the world. It's okay. We all move on. And I still have a friend who I met when I was going through this. I met her through a meetup. She still makes fun of me whenever she sees me. She's like, I can't believe you showed up at a meetup table and suddenly you just got up and you're like, hi, my name is Ritu. I'm from India and I want to be friends with all of you. And I was like, and all of them laughed so loud. So I've changed so much. I remember those little things I did for myself, like eating alone. Nobody talks about it, but in India, dinners or lunches are like 700 people eating with you. It's the most fun thing in the world. But when you come to this part of the world, in the US, when you have to eat dinner alone, it's such a big struggle. It was a big struggle for me, like sleeping alone and eating alone. So those were small challenges of I would write in the notebook for myself. I'll be like, tomorrow I'm going to go to a restaurant and not sit at the bar, sit at the table, ask her for a table for me only, and sit and order food and not be on the phone and sit and eat. Till today, it's my favorite thing to do. I enjoy being by myself. And that's when things started to change because I started loving myself a lot more because I was celebrating these wins every time I would come home. And then I started realizing I don't give up on things. If I want something, I'll make it happen. And talking to my parents or my friends, it was helpful, but it wasn't because it's not easy to explain. People in India who live there, they're like, just move here. Why are you doing this? I know what's going to happen when I move there. It's just, I need to do this. But it's important to go back to see how much I've grown in life. And I forget to give myself credit sometimes.
It is such a powerful story. These small experiences where you were focusing on yourself, trying things for the first time. And look, handling snow and stuff, even though at that time it felt like it's such a small thing, actually it isn't. You weren't born in that part of the world. You've not dealt with snow and all these situations. You probably know how to handle when electricity goes out, which people here will be scared about. So I think that perseverance that you have is so remarkable. And it's almost like scaffolding bit by bit. You were building your confidence and you were trying new things. This is a real inspiration for so many people who might be at the beginning of their journey today, listening to you, and who probably don't have this whole vision and all this confidence at once. And they will also hear that it can come to you step by step. And you've moved so bravely and confidently through it. And kudos to you.
It's been a wild journey, but it's been fun.
Coming to the point where you were now doing your healing journey in a way, your self-love journey in parallel, you said the divorce papers, it took you a while to sign them. How was the conversation about this when you broke it to your family?
Yeah, it wasn't the easiest thing to explain to my parents. I think after signing divorce papers, after I think 3-4 months, I told them, and the first thing they did was get a plane ticket and come here. So they came to the US. They set us both down and they were like, we don't have to honor these divorce papers because you got married in India. So you can't get divorced in the US. So we're not going to accept this. You're both together still and tell us your problems. And that time my ex-husband saw me changing so much that he was wanting this marriage back. So it wasn't easy to be like, listen, I'm trying to move on. This is my decision and you have to respect it. For them to see somebody who's done everything in her life to please her parents, for them it was like, oh shit, we probably lost our daughter because she's being so like stubborn about this decision. And I'm like, I'm not being stubborn. My future looks scary right now. It looks so much stable and easy if I go back to him. I know I don't have to deal with this when to pay water bill. And I was struggling to understand all of these things still. But it still didn't feel right to go back to crying in the bathtub. Those times, whenever I think about it, I'm always like, relationships are the best thing in your life. Love is the most beautiful thing you can experience, but it can also take you down like nobody's business. I was always happy and just like arranged marriage, no problem. And then suddenly I was in a marriage where every day felt the worst. I was like, this today is the worst day, and then tomorrow is worse than yesterday. I just didn't want to go back. So just explaining them, and because these three people are on one side, my parents and my ex-husband wanted this. And I was the one who was like, I don't want this. This is not good for me. And I've come a long way. Don't take me back. And they were like, if you love us, please do this for another month. Just give it a try. I was like, 1 month with him will take me back 7 years. I'm not doing it. So it took going back and forth. My mom either wanted me to get back with him or move to India. She just wanted to go home and be proud that she saved another marriage. And after they went back home, even for the next probably 2 years, whenever they would call, they would ask about him, or they would be like, did he call you? They were always in hopes. I got to know after a year that my mom had a little temple that has my and my ex-husband's picture in it. And she prays to God every day that they will be together. My mom is not religious, by the way. So she was like, maybe it's because I'm not religious. My daughter has to go through this. So I was like, I don't think God is going to help with this. I'm just confronting her with that, like calling her and be like, can you please remove that photo? That's embarrassing. Why are you putting God in a bad situation? I think she's good now, and it took her a while. And I just wanted her to understand that I'm choosing myself, which I wish she would have done in some situations where I saw her and I was like, you can do it. But I knew she wouldn't. Parents should understand this. They totally should. But think about putting yourself in a country, in a small city where everybody around you is married and happily married, or whatever you call it. That's what they show, at least. And then you have this daughter who's done everything you've told her to do in life. She's followed every rule. You've raised her so well, and then this happens, and you're like, how am I supposed to tell everybody in the society that my daughter went to the US and we were so proud of both of them, and now they're not together?
And it's dialogues like this, Ritu, that can also be a part of normalizing this, because you're right, the societal pressures for our parents' generation and society at large, even from bigger cities. It's the same conversation about keeping the sanctity of the marriage together. You knew that it was scarier for you to go back to that life with him, and hence you wanted to continue forging this new path despite the challenges you were confronted with. Your choices were also becoming clearer by this time as you started to have this independent life in the US. I can imagine that back then, there was not much resources as well, even for women like us, let alone our parents' generation. So you were essentially navigating all of this on your own.
I was also thinking of myself as not pretty enough for him. I remember when it kept getting worse, I started hating how I looked because I was just like, maybe it's me.
I think at the time it does feel that it's big because it is an important life decision. It's also probably the heaviness or the patriarchal norms attached to marriage and divorce. And you are now just making some choices that make sense for you. But do you think that being in the US post-divorce has actually made that a little easier? Like in your circle of people, did you feel more or less comfortable and accepted compared to South Asian people back home?
I would say so, yes. I was keeping my distance from Indian culture after getting divorced. Maybe because I knew what they were going to say and I didn't want to hear it. And whenever I would talk to my family back home too, I would talk about everything but divorce. Like, and if somebody's talking about me, don't tell me that. I was in Nashville. It's still South. It was, I wouldn't say common part, but it's an acceptable part of life in the US. People don't question you so much here. And I ended up finding friends who were supporting me in my decision.
I usually ask guests for some insights about what were the most significant factors in their healing journey that helped during and post-divorce. And with you, I assume that comedy has also played some important role there. I'm curious to hear how would you answer this, because this is just my assumption.
Yeah, I think just the fact that I was getting so depressed in my ending time through divorce that I was just like, I want to laugh. I want to be happy. And I felt like, oh, I can make myself happy by doing silly things and stupid things. And I was very interested in finding my passion. After divorce, I just started joining a lot of classes. There were like a lot of times when I wrote a list of things that I wanted to do, and I ended up doing this comedy class. And humor is the best thing in the world. People come to comedy shows when they go through breakup. You forget about your problems for a minute and just laugh out loud at it. It's been the best thing to just come home and write. And when you say it on stage and it gets laughs, you're like, oh shit, I just made fun of my life. Like writing about this, my accomplishments include one failed marriage with the goal of failing at a few more. This is the dumbest thing I never thought I'll go through, but I am here. And it happened with me. When I talk about it, I feel sad, but when I say it on stage, I feel alive. And there will be so many people who will be going through a divorce or a breakup, and they're like, well, it doesn't seem as heavy as it seems right now. She's making fun of it. It's the best thing that's happened to me, and I'm just so lucky and happy that I found my passion. It's the most fun thing to find what you love doing. I had a lot of jobs and I'm responsible and so serious about things that I always ended up being good at it. But being good at something doesn't mean you enjoy it, is what I learned. I'm a sales manager at a hotel now, and I do really well there too. But even my boss would do a one-on-one with, he's like, what do you want to do next? Want to become a director of sales? I was like, no, I want to be a headliner. I do this because I'm living in the most expensive city. So I just want a good lifestyle. That's why I do this. And I give it my all, but it doesn't mean I enjoy it. I do enjoy getting paid $7 and driving 3 hours to do a show. And I come home and I keep blushing when I drive back 3 hours. It just makes life so much more fun. Like I make fun of how my mom is or my dad is. And people who are from Indian culture would relate to it and they'll be like, that is so silly. They do this all the time.
So I love it, Ritu. This is so fun to see you so passionate about comedy and also using it to deal with difficult topics, because often the best stand-ups are also so vulnerable and they're telling the truth in a funny way and we can all laugh about it, but it still has the power to also reveal truth about society or human nature and, takes the sting out of something like divorce, as you said, or Indian parents, things they're saying. And, if you laugh about it, it just becomes easier to deal with it. And how much would you say you draw also on divorce and marriage in your comedy versus other topics? I know you mentioned a couple of things, and from what I've seen online, you do have a range of topics. Do you feel this has evolved over time?
Yeah, it is. It has changed a lot. As a comedian, the first year is always like, oh my God, I want people to laugh all the time. And then the second year, you're like, I want to write about my personal life. And the third year is more like, oh, I'm trying to find my voice, who I am. So the material has changed a lot. I would say the first year I wasn't writing at all about divorce. The second year I was writing more about breakups and divorce, or I got comfortable with it or healed more. And now I think it's a balance of everyday observation and everyday life, or like immigration, things that are happening that I'm dealing with right now. Like I'm living with my boyfriend for the first time and we would fight about something and then I'll take my notebook and start writing. He's like, are you seriously writing right now? I'm like, it's just funny that you said that. It's like, so my material has changed over time, I would say. I'm changing as a comic. I'm getting more comfortable on stage. And if that's not the only thing you know about me, that's one part of my life that I don't like to keep it hidden. So I say it out loud. But that doesn't make me who I am. That's just one part of my life that I'll just say it really just if somebody's going through it, they can just laugh about it. Go home and think of it. It's not the most serious thing in the world. People are dealing with a lot more, trust me.
Yeah, and I think that's also a good way of embracing that. It was a part of your life, it happened, and you're not hiding it. You are making it visible, but it's not the end of your story. There's so much more. And you mentioned that you are living with somebody, and you also said you believe in love and you wanted a relationship, but you're not interested in marriage. Do you also have any tips for post-divorce dating for people?
I haven't really dated before in India. So after divorce, when I started dating, it was very interesting because people compliment here a lot. And in Indian culture, we don't compliment. So it was fun to just sit down at the table and he would be like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. Oh my God, I love your eyes. Or like very specific about compliments. And it's my favorite thing about American culture, how much we compliment each other. And I do it now. The whole process was more out of curiosity than finding love initially after divorce. And then living together before marriage, I think my boyfriend didn't really wanted this. I feel you get to know so much about the person when you live with them. I knew my boyfriend was very organized, but I didn't know he was that organized. If the instruction on the cake manual says 4 minutes, you have to whisk it, he does it for exactly 4 minutes. We don't stop at 3 minutes, 58 seconds. And I am like, well, it says whisk, but I don't have time for that. Let's just put it like I am extremely different. So learning things about him has been fun. And then you get more excited about future. You know, it'll change still because we both are growing every day. So it's going to be different, but at least you know who this person is at his core.
When you were making these decisions, I'm assuming the issue that was in your marriage, the issues that led up to your divorce, there were some things that you were actively trying to avoid and not have to deal with when you were making these decisions during your dating phase.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I don't date Indian men at all. I don't want to say it out loud. It's just so, because they're all like, we also don't want to date you. Who wants to date a divorce? So I don't date Indian men. And I make fun of them a lot on stage. So if I get off of stage and they're there, they're like, damn, girl, that was harsh, but funny. But it's not good to generalize one race for one bad experience you had. But I'm also in a new country and I want to learn new cultures. And because I grew up with them, I was married to one. I think I'm done. I'm over it. That's something I avoid. Just generally, if you're not a feminist, like you have to be supportive because we don't have the easiest life. Even if it's the richest country in the world, there are a lot of times that I feel like this, especially like in comedy too. There are very few women. That's one of the things that when I was dating, I was looking for it. And just respect for women in general, not only for me.
That was very candid and very clear. I have some similar feelings about my dating choices. So, with that, maybe we change some gears. What is your biggest ache about when you first tell people that you are divorced?
I'm sorry. That's just so annoying. And do you want to get married again? It's so different from time to time. I feel when you just get divorced, you don't feel this is what you want to do. But after a few years, you find the right person. Things could change. We're all growing all the time.
And what's the one piece of advice you would give someone who is going through divorce or thinking of the decision?
I would say just listen to your heart and build that confidence slowly. It takes time. And self-love is the biggest thing that has helped me. It's all going to work out if you're true to yourself. And happiness is the only thing that you should choose. And if you're not happy in that relationship, you don't have to explain to anybody why are you not happy. Just listen to your heart and go for it. It'll be a little bit of a hard journey, but trust me, it'll be worth it. And then you can come to Harveen's podcast and tell the world that you did it.
That's a great way to end, Ritu. Is there anything you want to say that we haven't asked you and it's on your mind before we conclude the episode today?
No, I think the questions were so great. And I just want to tell people Harveen and I met on Instagram and she came up with this podcast idea. And I love the thing in her eyes. I don't know how to explain it, that she was so excited about this podcast. And I'm just so proud of you for doing it. and asking such amazing questions. And I can see why you wanted to do it. And hopefully this helps a lot of people out there struggling with relationship or finding passion. Hopefully this helps. Even one sentence I said that helps you, I will be so happy. And try to listen to this without judging any of us for asking these questions or answering these questions. That would be so awesome. Yeah, it was awesome to do this. Thank you so much for having me.
That was so sweet of you to say, Ritu. And I have to say this before we end. I read this on social media that it said, your darkest chapter doesn't define you, but your glow up does. And especially you clearly have had a major shift in life. And I hope other listeners can also have that and can feel inspired by all the insightful stuff that you've shared today.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a charmer Ritu is. This interaction had my heart full. And I've been trying to put my finger on exactly why this conversation impressed me so much. I think it's because Ritu's story, which she tells so matter-of-factly, reflects so much quiet determination. She is a low-key rebel. Like at 18, her parents started looking for a husband for her, and she just started studying, and secretly was glad when matches weren't working out because she could keep getting her education. And who would have thought that zeal to discover who she was will end up with her being a comedian at this stage of her life, making people laugh and lightening up. Even in our conversation today, what could be a hard topic like divorce, she spoke with such honesty about her experiences and was so relatable and so funny. I was laughing at so many stages, what were, I'm sure, quite difficult things at the time, but in a specific Ritu style, humor gave us a way to take the sting out of it. But this story was about more than divorce and touched on so many other gender aspects, like what is a respectable career for a woman in India, and how many such biases that reflects what a woman in India is confronted with in her daily reality. And in the case of Ritu, it was also so full of positive evolution and finding confidence again bit by bit. And I love that Ritu has created a new chapter and decided for herself who she is and wants to be. Thank you for joining us. If you valued this conversation, please share the podcast, rate it, and subscribe to Sunoh wherever you get your podcast from, so that you get notifications with each new episode. It helps more people to find us and join this community. You can also find all the details about the guest in the show notes as well as on our social media pages. Please note that this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not replace legal, therapeutic, or other professional guidance that you or someone close to you may need, catering to their specific situation. If you are in a dangerous situation, please contact the nearest hotline or authorities where you can find the help you need. Since our podcast caters to a global audience, we are unable to share a lot of country-wide resources. But I'm sure your country, your state, your city, wherever you're listening from, has some resources available for you. To share your story or feedback, please reach out to us. Thank you for listening.